The music was soft, the kind of generic ballad that exists only to make wedding guests feel like they're inside a jewelry commercial. I was leaning against the bar, watching my 7-year-old twirl on the dance floor in her blush pink dress, her curls bouncing as she spun. For about 90 seconds, the whole room was watching her, not the bride, not the groom, just a little girl being utterly, obliviously joyful. Then I saw my mother-in-law rise from her seat. Gloria moved with the speed of someone who'd been waiting for an excuse. She cut across the floor in her champagne-colored gown, pearls clicking, smile still pasted on for the cameras. Her hand closed around Mia's upper arm and yanked. Not gently redirected. Yanked the way you'd snatch a dog from a dinner table. Mia stumbled. The music didn't stop, but the laughter around us did. I was already walking forward when Gloria's voice cut through the silence like glass. "Absolutely not," she said, loud enough for the front 3 tables. "No daughter of a nobody soldier is going to steal the spotlight today. This is Ethan and Victoria's moment. You do not belong in it." She said nobody soldier the way someone would say rodent infestation. Mia looked up at me, face crumpling, not understanding the words, but understanding exactly the hate behind them. I didn't scream. I didn't make a scene. That's what she wanted, the unstable enlisted wife throwing a tantrum at her precious son's wedding. Instead, I walked over, scooped Mia into my arms, and looked Gloria straight in the eyes. Her smile had barely flickered. She was so sure she'd already won. "We're leaving," I said, calm, almost bored. "I think that's best," Gloria replied, and turned back to her table like I'd just confirmed a seating chart. My husband, Daniel, was standing near the head table, frozen mid-conversation. He'd seen the whole thing. He did nothing. He gave me the same helpless grimace he'd been giving me for 7 years of marriage, the one that said, "You know how she is. Please don't make it worse." I didn't even look at him. Mia and I walked through the lobby, past the flower arrangements Gloria had spent 6 months obsessing over, and out into the night. 2 hours later, I got the call from the ER. Mia had been quiet in the car. Too quiet. By the time we got home, she was wheezing. She has exercise-induced asthma, and the combination of crying and stress had triggered something. Tight chest, shallow breaths, the kind of thing that panics a parent and looks like nothing to a 911 dispatcher. I didn't wait for an ambulance. I drove her myself, still wearing my Air Force dress blues from the wedding. The hospital was understaffed that night, fluorescent lights buzzing over a half-empty waiting room. A triage nurse took one look at Mia, heard asthma, and waved us straight through. I was holding Mia's hand while they put an oxygen mask over her tiny face when I heard the curtain swish behind me. A second nurse stepped in with a clipboard. She was maybe 50, sharp-eyed, the kind of woman who's seen everything. She glanced at me, then at Mia, then down at her clipboard. Then she looked at me again. Her eyes snagged on my uniform. She froze. "Wait," she said slowly, reading something on the page. "They said a colonel was coming." I just looked at her. Her gaze dropped to my name tape, then to the rank on my shoulders. The Silver Oak Leaves. Her whole face shifted confusion, then disbelief, then something like awe. "Oh my God," she whispered. "That's you." For a long beat, there was no sound except Mia's soft breathing and the distant beep of monitors. The nurse's reaction told me everything I needed to know. Someone, probably Daniel, trying to speed things along, had called ahead and dropped my rank to get Mia seen faster. The hospital had been expecting a colonel to arrive. They just hadn't expected her to be the nobody soldier Gloria had thrown out of a wedding 2 hours ago. I gave the nurse a small, tired smile. "It's me." That was the moment something clicked into place. Not rage. Not hurt. Something colder and much more patient. A calculation. For 7 years, I had deliberately downplayed my career. I never wore my uniform to family events. I never mentioned my deployments, my commendations, the fact that I commanded over 400 airmen and managed an 8-figure operational budget. Daniel's family was old Southern money, country club board seats, and genealogy charts in leather binders, and they'd decided early on that the girl their son brought home from Texas was sweet, but not our kind. When I joined the Air Force, Gloria told her friends I'd enlisted because I couldn't find a real job. She'd been so confident in her story that she never bothered to ask if I'd been commissioned. Never noticed the subtle signs. Never cared. I let her believe it. It was easier. Peaceful even. Until tonight. While Mia slept in the hospital bed, I opened my phone and started digging. Not emotionally, systematically. Something Gloria had said at the wedding kept rattling around in my skull. You do not belong in it. The weird emphasis on belong. The panic in her voice when Mia took the spotlight. This wasn't just garden variety cruelty. This was territorial. I texted my paralegal, a friend from Base Legal, and asked her to pull something for me. The Weaver family trust documents. Daniel's grandfather had set up an irrevocable trust for the grandchildren years ago. Mia was the youngest grandchild. She was supposed to have a distribution coming at age 7, a modest lump sum meant for education, nothing life-changing, but a clean $50,000. We'd never seen a cent of it. The reply came back in 40 minutes. The trust had been liquidated. Not drained slowly, liquidated in 2 large withdrawals 18 months ago. The trustee listed on the account? Gloria Weaver Matthews. I sat in that hard plastic chair, the hospital quiet around me, and stared at the numbers on my screen. The timeline matched up perfectly. 18 months ago, Gloria and her husband had made a big show of helping Ethan and Victoria with a down payment on a house. Then there was the bridal shower at the Ritz-Carlton. The honeymoon fund. The dress that cost more than most people's first car. All of it, bankrolled in part by money that legally belonged to my 7-year-old daughter. My mother-in-law didn't just humiliate my child. She stole from her. She stole from her to fund the exact wedding where she then physically removed her from the dance floor for being a nobody. I didn't cry. I didn't call Daniel. I took a slow breath and felt the weight of the silver oak leaves on my shoulders. I'd spent my career navigating billion-dollar acquisitions and mission-critical negotiations. Gloria ran a charity board and thought leverage was a tennis term. She confused my silence for weakness. She confused my uniform for a costume. She looked at me and saw a nobody soldier. What she didn't know, what she was about to learn, was that I'd just been handed a legal warhead and a perfect stage. The Weaver Family Foundation Gala was 11 days away. Black tie. Valet parking. 300 of Gloria's closest social climbing friends. She'd been preening about it for months. It was the night she was set to announce a new legacy initiative honoring her late husband's memory. A night built entirely on her image, her generosity, her reputation. I didn't need to argue with her. I didn't need to scream at Daniel. I just needed 11 days of silence, some strategically acquired bank records, and one very patient attorney. By the time Mia was discharged the next morning, lungs clear, spirits fragile, I'd already scheduled the meeting. I gave Mia a kiss on the forehead, told her mommy was going to fix everything, and drove home with a calm that felt almost serene. Gloria texted the family group chat later that afternoon, "Please leave last night behind us. Family forgives. Let's focus on the gala, it's going to be magical sparkles." I typed back 3 words that made my husband glance at me from across the kitchen, suddenly nervous. "Can't wait, Gloria." She thought I was coming to make peace. She had no idea I was coming to serve an indictment. 11 days is a long time when you know exactly what you're waiting for. It's an eternity when no one else knows you're waiting at all. I spent those 11 days the way I'd spent my entire career, methodically, quietly, leaving no fingerprints. My paralegal connected me with a forensic accountant who specialized in family trust litigation. She was a retired JAG officer named Simmons who wore cardigans and spoke in spreadsheets. Within 72 hours, she'd traced every dollar from the Weaver Family Trust through a series of shell accounts Gloria had established under the foundation's tax ID number. It wasn't just the $50,000 meant for Mia. Gloria had been skimming from the trust for 6 years, small amounts at first, then larger, bolder, until the whole thing was a hollowed-out shell wearing a charitable mask. The total came to just under $340,000. She'd used it for European vacations she called foundation research trips. For a leased Mercedes she parked at charity events. For the gala itself, the venue deposit, the floral arrangements, the champagne tower she'd been bragging about on Facebook for weeks. The same gala where she planned to stand on a stage and accept applause for her generosity. The irony was so perfect I almost laughed. Daniel noticed I was different. Quieter. He kept asking if I was okay, if I was still upset about the wedding, if I wanted to talk. I told him I was just tired from the hospital scare. He accepted that easily, too easily. That was our pattern. He'd ask just enough to feel like a good husband, then retreat the moment a real answer might require something from him. On the third night, he said, "My mom really does feel bad about how things went down." I looked at him over my coffee mug. "Did she tell you that?" Pause. "She told Victoria, who told Ethan, who told me." "So no, she didn't tell you." He sighed. The sigh of a man who'd spent his entire life navigating around his mother's sharp edges and had convinced himself that survival was the same thing as loyalty. I used to find that sigh sympathetic. Now I just found it useful. "She's under a lot of pressure with the gala," he tried. "I'm sure she is," I said, and meant it completely differently than he heard. The day of the gala arrived warm and gold-lit, the kind of September evening that makes wealthy people want to stand on manicured lawns holding champagne flutes. The Weaver Family Foundation rented out the botanical gardens downtown, a glass-walled conservatory strung with thousands of tiny lights, orchids suspended from the ceiling, a string quartet playing something tasteful and forgettable. I arrived alone. Daniel had gone early to help with setup. I told him I'd meet him there. I took my time getting ready, hair up, subtle makeup, a black sheath dress that was elegant without competing. And over it, deliberately, I draped my Air Force mess jacket. Silver oak leaves glinting on the epaulets. Miniature medals in a neat row. I hadn't worn it to a family event in 7 years. The valet's eyes widened slightly. "Good evening, ma'am." "Good evening." Inside, the conservatory hummed with 300 people who all knew each other from country clubs and charity boards and private schools with Latin mottos. I moved through the crowd like a ghost they didn't recognize. Several of Gloria's friends glanced at my jacket, then at my face, then did a double take. One woman, the wife of a bank executive I'd met twice before, actually opened her mouth and closed it again. I found my seat near the back, not the family table near the stage. Gloria had seated me in the auxiliary section, the social equivalent of a storage closet. Fine. I wanted distance. I wanted to see the whole room when it happened. Gloria swept past me 20 minutes later without stopping. She was in royal blue, dripping with diamonds borrowed from a jeweler who sponsored the foundation. Her smile was radioactive. She touched my shoulder as she passed, a gesture so brief it was almost a sweat. "So glad you came. Try the crab cakes." She didn't mention the jacket. Didn't even look at it. Either she didn't understand the rank insignia or she'd already decided it didn't matter. In her world, I was still the nobody soldier. A uniform was just a costume. She'd spent so many years believing her own story that reality had become irrelevant. Daniel found me during the cocktail hour. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, nervous in a way that aged him. "You wore your mess dress," he said, blinking. "I did. People keep asking me about it. Mrs. Hargrove just asked if you were someone important." "What did you tell her?" He hesitated. The hesitation told me everything. He'd said something vague, something dismissive. He'd protected his mother's narrative without even thinking about it. "I said you were in the Air Force," he offered weakly. "That's true," I said. "I am." Dinner passed in a blur of mediocre filet and polite conversation I didn't participate in. I watched the head table. Ethan, the golden boy groom, laughing too loud. Victoria, the bride, glowing with the particular satisfaction of a woman who'd married into exactly the family she'd researched. And Gloria, presiding over all of it like a queen surveying territory. Then the lights dimmed. The presentation began. A video montage, the foundation's history, photos of Gloria at charity events, children she'd allegedly helped, schools she'd allegedly funded. The music swelled. The crowd applauded at all the right moments. And then Gloria took the stage, bathed in a spotlight beaming. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, voice honeyed. The Weaver Family Foundation has always been about legacy, about family, about giving back to the community that has given us so much. I let her talk. I let her soak in the applause. I let her announce the Legacy Initiative, her voice cracking with practiced emotion as she invoked her late husband's memory. The room was eating from her hand. She was at the absolute peak of everything she'd ever wanted. Then she said the words I'd been waiting for. And I'm so proud to share that tonight, thanks to the generosity of our donors, we've raised over $500,000 for the new scholarship fund. The applause was thunderous. I stood up, slowly. No sudden movements. Just a woman rising from the back of the room, adjusting her jacket and walking toward the stage. A few heads turned. Then more. The applause faltered as people noticed not me, but the reaction of the people noticing me. A ripple of confusion moving through the crowd. Gloria saw me approaching and her smile tightened but held. "Oh, and here's my daughter-in-law now," she said into the microphone, improvising, trying to fold me into the narrative. She wanted to say a few words about what family means. I reached the stage steps. I didn't climb them. I turned to face the crowd instead, standing at the base of the stage like a prosecutor approaching the bench. "I'm not here to talk about what family means," I said, loud enough to carry without a microphone. The room went very quiet. "I'm here to talk about what family does. Specifically, what Gloria Weaver-Matthews has been doing to her own family for the past 6 years. Someone gasped. Not dramatically, a real, involuntary intake of breath. Gloria's smile cracked. "What are you doing?" she hissed, away from the mic. I pulled a folded document from inside my jacket, unfolded it slowly. The room watched. This is a certified forensic audit of the Weaver Family Trust, dated 3 days ago. The trust was established by Harold Weaver to provide for his grandchildren's education. It was placed under the trusteeship of Gloria Weaver-Matthews. And over the past 6 years, Gloria systematically liquidated $340,000 from that trust for personal use. The silence was absolute now. The string quartet had stopped playing. Someone's champagne glass hit the floor, and no one moved to pick it up. That money, I continued, paid for vacations, a car lease, tonight's floral arrangements, and a significant portion of the wedding that took place 11 days ago, the same wedding where Gloria physically removed my 7-year-old daughter from the dance floor and called her mother a nobody soldier in front of 200 guests. I let that land. I watched it land on the faces of donors, board members, journalists from the society pages who'd been covering the event. Gloria's face had gone the color of old paper. "You're lying," she breathed, but it came out like a question. I reached into my jacket again and pulled out a flash drive. Held it up. Every transaction. Every account. Every signature. I've already filed copies with the State Attorney General's office, the IRS Charitable Fraud Division, and the Foundation's own board of directors. They'll be in touch Monday morning. Gloria's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. She looked at Ethan, who was staring at her with dawning horror. At Victoria, who was calculating exactly how fast this scandal would tank her new social standing. At Daniel, who was standing near the back, face blank with shock. Security, Gloria finally managed. Security, remove her. No. The voice came from the front table. A woman in her 70s stood up, silver-haired, formidable. The Foundation's vice chair. Her name was Margaret Chin, and I'd been in contact with her for exactly 4 days. "Margaret, she's lying." "I've seen the documents," Margaret said, and her voice was ice. "The board received them this morning. We've already voted to remove you as chair, effective immediately. We were going to tell you after the gala. But I think now works." The sound Gloria made wasn't a word. It was a collapse, a deflation of everything she'd constructed. Her hands gripped the podium. Her diamonds glittered under the lights, suddenly obscene. "You can't do this," she whispered. "This is my foundation. My husband's foundation." "Your husband," I said, "left that trust to protect his grandchildren. You stole from your own granddaughter's education fund to throw a party. And you called me a nobody." I stepped closer to the stage. Not aggressive. Not shouting. Calm. "I am a colonel in the United States Air Force. I oversee a budget larger than your foundation's entire endowment. I command 400 airmen. I've served 3 combat deployments. And for 7 years, I let you treat me like a charity case because I thought keeping the peace was the right thing to do for my family. I let the silence stretch. But the night you put your hands on my daughter was the night I stopped needing your peace. Gloria's legs gave out. She didn't fall, she sort of crumpled sideways, and Ethan had to rush up to catch her. Her face was wrecked. Not just embarrassed, dismantled. The mask was gone. Underneath was just a woman who'd spent decades building an image and just watched it shatter in front of everyone who mattered to her. I turned to the crowd. 300 faces frozen. Some horrified. Some fascinated. Some, I noticed, trying very hard to hide small smiles. "Enjoy the rest of your evening," I said. "The crab cakes really are excellent." I walked back up the aisle the same way I'd come down it. Past the orchids. Past the string quartet, who had awkwardly resumed playing something soft and uncertain. Past Margaret Chin, who gave me a single, dignified nod. Past Daniel, who was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Maybe he hadn't. I was in the valet line when I heard footsteps behind me. Wait. I turned. Daniel stood there, breathless, tie loosened, looking like a man who'd just watched his entire understanding of his life get revised in 10 minutes. "You're a colonel," he said. "I've been a colonel for 2 years. Major before that. Captain before that." I tilted my head. "You never asked." He flinched. I asked. "You asked if work was busy. You didn't ask what I did. There's a difference." His jaw worked. Mia's trust. "Did you know?" "I found out the night of the hospital. When you called ahead and told them a colonel was coming." I smiled, just slightly. "You gave me the idea, actually. So, thank you." He didn't smile back. "What happens now? To my mom? To the foundation? Your mother will likely face felony charges. The IRS doesn't love charitable fraud. The foundation will survive. Margaret Chin is more competent than Gloria ever was. And Mia will get her money back, plus damages. I've already filed the civil suit. You sued my mother. She stole from our child, Daniel. She stole from a 7-year-old to pay for a champagne tower she used to toast her own vanity. And you stood there at the wedding and let her call me a nobody in front of everyone we know." I stepped closer to him. "You don't get to act outraged now. You lost that right when you chose silence over your own family." He looked at me. Really looked. And I saw it happen, the recalibration. The slow, painful realization that the woman he'd been married to for 7 years was not the woman he thought she was. That she was smarter, harder, more patient, more dangerous. And that she was done. "I'm staying at a hotel tonight," I said. "Mia's with my parents. Tomorrow, we'll talk about what comes next. But tonight, I need you to sit with what just happened and ask yourself why it took me exposing your mother's crimes for you to see her clearly." The valet pulled up with my car. I took the keys. "One more thing," I said, pausing at the door. "When we talk tomorrow, you should know that I'm not angry. I'm not hurt. I'm not any of the things you're probably expecting me to be. What are you?" I slid into the driver's seat and looked up at him through the open window. Free. I drove away from the botanical gardens, away from the twinkling lights and the shattered empire and the woman who'd spent 7 years making me feel small. The city sprawled ahead, dark and quiet and full of possibility. Mia was safe. Gloria was finished. The money was coming home. And for the first time in my marriage, I wasn't asking for permission to exist. I didn't lose my family that night. I lost the version of them that needed me silent. The rest, whatever was left, could decide whether they wanted to know the real me. The me who didn't hide her uniform. The me who commanded a room without raising her voice. The me who just dismantled a narcissist with nothing but paperwork, patience, and 11 days of strategic silence. I turned onto the highway and let the city lights blur past. It wasn't revenge, exactly. It was just the truth, finally allowed to speak. And the truth, I'd learned, was the one thing Gloria Weaver Matthews had no defense against.